Building in Fortnite is one of the hardest skills to learn when you first start playing, and is also something you need to master to succeed in competitive and creative before moving on to master other skills. As well as this, there are some building moves that even the most advanced players don't know yet, or don't know how to utilise to their full potential. So in this video, I'm going to be going over 7 building moves that you can use in Fortnite, in real games or in creative. As the video goes on, the moves are going to get more advanced, and they'll all be in video chapters, so if there's something specific you want to learn, you can get to it pretty easily. So, I'd really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe, and without further ado, let's get into it. Starting off, this is one of the easiest moves to practice and master in Fortnite, and that's just a simple side jump. Side jumping is a really good way to get elevation in fights when the opponent isn't expecting it, and is one of the first things you should learn when you're learning to build. To do a side jump, you just build up on a ramp, place a cone at the top of the ramp, then jump out to the side from as high up the ramp as you can get and catch yourself on the floor. Once you've got the hang of this, start doing it while sprint jumping, because this is much faster and allows you to keep your momentum in a fight. After you've mastered a simple side jump, you can start side jumping onto a ramp. The easiest way to do this is to have the ramp facing outwards from the top of the cone. So, to do this, place a wall through the cone, then do a normal side jump, but make sure to face outwards and place a ramp underneath you, which you'll land on the bottom of. If this is difficult initially, you can use a map with a slow-mo feature to get the hang of it, before speeding it up to do it properly. After doing this, you can then go into a protected ramp or 90s, or you can actually go straight into another one of these side jumps. Doing as many of these in a row as you can is a really good way to warm up this move. Another version of this building move is doing the same thing but having the ramp placed forwards rather than sideways, which can be more useful in fights, but is more difficult to do, especially if you're trying to do it more than once in quick succession. A more advanced move, which comes as a natural progression from side jumping, is the high wall. High walling is an integral part of building for PGs and zone wars, and can be really useful for build fights in game as well. After you've done a side jump, look far up and place a wall. Then you can place a ramp to run up. After you've placed the wall, one of the most useful things you can do is edit a window and place a cone through it, because this has the potential to block the other player and give you an easy shot. Placing a cone after high walling is pretty easy, because cones have a further reach on the building grid than other pieces. Despite how simple this seems, the high wall is a move still regularly utilised by the best pros in the world, especially those who are prevalent in the zone war scene. Obviously there's no way I could do a video on simple building moves without mentioning 90s, so I'm going to quickly go over them. If you've watched the game before, you probably know what they are, but they're basically the easiest way you're going to be able to elevate in game and can be done in a variety of ways. The easiest form of 90s is doing them to the right while jumping, and they're done like this. Place a ramp, then place 3 walls like this, jump, place a floor, then place another ramp. Once you've got the hang of this, you can start doing 90s without jumping, which are more difficult, but it's basically just the same builds without doing the jump to give yourself extra time. The next progression after this is doing 2 90s at once, jumping first then not jumping. This is really difficult and can only be done after you've mastered both the types of 90s. You can also do 90s without placing the walls, which is more difficult because there's nothing to stop you from falling off, but should be pretty easy once you've got the hang of it. Most pros start off their 1v1s by using a mixture of 90s without walls and doing 2 at once, because this is by far the fastest way you can start a build fight. Next, I'm going to talk about the Thwifo Cone. This is a phrase I personally haven't heard for at least 3 years, because to be honest, most players have forgotten that this move even has a name. It's really easy to perform a Thwifo Cone. While you're ramping up, look behind you and place 4 walls like this, then place a cone on top. This is really useful if you need to turn your ramp into a protected ramp, because you can then continue, placing a ramp going up from this cone. It's also much better than blocking the other player from shooting you using a cone directly on your ramp, because it puts an extra layer between you and the opponent, so it's far less likely that they manage to get any damage on you. If you're at an advanced building level, it's actually possible to utilise the Thwifo Cone for some high ground retakes which the other player won't expect. Like if you continue to ramp, turn around to jump from your ramp and place a floor in a ramp like this. Moving on to something that's been incredibly popular in the last 2 or 3 years of Fortnite, and you'll undoubtedly have heard or seen pros doing this, but may not know exactly how to do it yourself, and that's the regular side-on full box. To perform a full box, you should take the peek from a window atop right hand peanut butter edit to reduce the chance of the other player shooting you. Through the open part of the wall, place walls all around and a cone on top and bottom of the box. You should practice doing this until you can consistently get all the pieces in place, without placing other pieces unnecessarily. If you want more realistic practice, you can use maps like Raider's warm-up map or Resub's training hub to practice doing it before shooting a bot. The best time to try to full box an opponent is when you know they're going to edit out of their box, and this is often to your right, so this is the first place you should always full piece. Linking slightly to the side on full box, we've got the slightly more difficult top down full box. This relies on being able to do a top down double edit, so if you can't do a double edit, practice first while running up a ramp, then practice doing it downwards. The way you actually perform a top down full box is double edit, place a cone in the bottom of the box and place walls all around. If the other player's low, you can take a 50-50 here, otherwise it might be best to place a wall to block the shot, then edit through, or drop down and take a side angle. This move can be used in box fights or build fights, and you know where you're going to do it by looking at visual sound effects when the other player's boxed underneath you to know which direction they're going to go in. Once you've mastered it and you're able to do it quickly, it's possible to do it in more than one direction to completely trap the opponent. As well as being able to do this with a cone, it's possible to do it with a ramp, but this has two main problems. Firstly, if the opponent places a floor and ends up underneath the ramp, they can just edit down through the floor, and secondly, if they don't place a floor, the ramp's likely not to catch them, so they'll just fall down. The main advantage to using a ramp is that you can then drop on the ramp and take a good peek around it, rather than having to likely 50-50 like you would with a cone. The final building move I'm going to discuss in this video is a bit easier than the last few, and that's being able to place a cone over a wall or ramp. Initially, you might not understand exactly what I mean, which is why it's so good. Most players don't even know the game's mechanics allow it. It once again takes advantage of the fact cones can be placed from further away than other building pieces, and it's really easy to do. If someone's ramping up towards you or doing 90s next to you, and you're not going to get there fast enough to place a ramp over them, or if you just want to double edit down on them, just look up and place a cone. Looking in a certain position will allow you to place a cone like this, stopping the other player from going any further and giving you the advantage. This can be made much easier to do if while you're ramping up, you place a cone on top of your ramp and then edit through it, because this then forces the game to place the cone on the other player's ramp rather than on your own. Obviously this is a much more difficult strategy to pull off if the other player is 90ing, because it's really difficult to get a cone placed in the right angle. This is quite difficult to practice by yourself, so it may just be a matter of trying it in 1v1s until you get used to it. Once you've placed this cone, the other player will usually do one of two things. They'll either side jump to get around it, which you can predict and full box, or they'll go backwards and go the other way, which you can then also top down full box. So, I hope you've learned something in this video, whether you're just learning building or if you've been playing since Fortnite came out. I'd really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.